Today on Energy Contact, have you ever noticed that when you see people, even at a long distance, you can tell roughly how old they are? It's one of the first things you can distinguish about them, and it has something to do with their structure, with the way their spines are shaped. But why should an old spine look any different than a young spine? How about when people look older or younger than their years? Well, that has something to do with their spines too. It has to do with whether they're fighting or cooperating with gravity. Which one are you doing? You might not even be sure. But we're all about to find out because it's coming up right now on Energy Contact.
I'm gonna drive away all these doubts I've been keeping and now keep my mind on better things. He ain't gonna worry and I ain't gonna complain. I'm gonna drive away all these doubts I've been keeping and now keep my mind on better things. Just keep my mind on better things.
Hello, and welcome to Energy Contact. My name is Joseph Willenbrink. Thank you for joining me, and thank you to the production staff here in the studio for helping me get my message out to you. Energy Contact is a series I'm presenting to you as a public service. It's about attaining perfect health, growth, self-improvement, happiness, and realizing your full potential. It's designed to present you a new way of seeing yourself and seeing the world around you. We're talking about things that have to do with making an energetic contact with yourself internally and with your environment. There's no difference between the body, the mind, the spirit, the emotions, the intellect, the ego. There's no difference between mass and energy. Einstein told us that a long time ago, and a lot of smart mystics a long time before that, but we still don't quite realize it yet. Break it down as we may, the more we look, we see there's no difference. And so that health and self-improvement take place at the interface where that unseen energetic world makes contact with our physical self. We're presenting on these programs a brand new paradigm, a new way of looking at things that's thousands of years old. We're presenting extraordinary topics for ordinary people. And let's move right ahead with that without delay and bring up that first slide. Everybody please know that I am not a doctor, don't want to be one, and I do not give medical advice. Don't want to do that either. I call myself an energy healer or a chakra healer. So do a lot of other people. But it's important to know that state, federal, and local governments do not. There's a lot of good information here on this slide, so we'll leave it up for a second and let you read it thoroughly. And when you've kind of got it down, I'll ask you to do me another favor, if you will. Get out a pencil and paper. Because at the end of this show, we're going to roll some credits, and on those credits is going to be contact information for me. I invite you to contact me. I hope you do. But in order to contact me, you're going to need that contact information. In order to get that, you're going to need a pencil and paper. Those credits aren't up there very long, so it's best to get your pencil and paper now. All right, let's come back up here. Today's show is show number 22. And if you're tuning in for the first time today, thank you and welcome. I think you'll enjoy the show. There's plenty of material on here that will be of interest to you. These shows are sequential. They do build, so we're talking about things this show that we've presented in previous shows. But at the same time, I'm doing a lot of review so that the show will have value on a standalone basis. If it is your first time or one of your first times joining me today and what you see piques your interest, well, please look around because there are previous shows airing later, either here in this cable neighborhood or perhaps in another cable area where a friend lives or something. And if you look for other shows, I'll be flattered and grateful. All right, and now it is with great pride and honor that I introduce my co-host Slim to you guys. This is Slim. Slim is with me on the show to help us explain a little bit of the physical selves. Since we're investigating what energy contacts in the physical self, we have to understand the physical self. We have to understand energy, but we have to understand that physical self that it contacts. Slim is helping us do that. Remember, a body without energy is just a corpse. Energy without a body isn't a human. To be healthy and alive, we need to make energy contact the physical self. Slim's helping us learn about that. All right, let's move ahead. Previously on Energy Contact, we have been discussing a lot about the body intellect, how that same stuff, those same chemicals, compounds in our brains that give us thought, intellect, reason, recall, memory, all of those things, we think that they're specifically brain materials, but they're not. We've seen that those same things are in every cell of the body. So we have a body intellect that's at least as smart as our brain intellect. And we've seen how that body intellect builds the anatomy, how thought builds us, how we are creations of our own thought. We've talked about the internal forces and the external forces that shape us. The internal forces are the forces that animate us: breath, heartbeat, pulse, rhythm, frequency, vibration. All of those things that differentiate us from a dead guy. The external forces are the traumas, the bumps, the blows, the kisses and hugs of life. They are gravity and entropy and energy, that part of energy that's outside of us. We've seen that what they told us in grade school about our skeletons is absolutely wrong. Our skeletons are not the girders and the frameworks that hold us together. As a matter of fact, it's us that hold our skeletons together. That's why my friend Slim needs bolts and screws and you don't. Bones are not our frame. They're our spacers. They're a way of creating space and distance from one part of us to another part of us. And we've learned recently that until we make our pain go away, we don't think of anything else. Until our most basic need is met, we can't focus on anything. That's why so many of us are not growing, are not healthy, are not moving ahead, because we can't move on past our pain. Finally, we've been observing what all of that has to do with our core. And we've begun to move out of our core a little bit, but please know as we move out of it that we never truly leave our core. The more we branch out of it, the more we get in touch with it. Last show, we took all these observations I just mentioned and we focused them towards our basic vertical and horizontal structures, our spine and our pelvis, and primarily our spine. And that's where we're continuing today. We've seen what the core of us is doing with those basic structures, but there's other stuff going on. Why do we have aching backs and aching necks? What other anatomy works with the psoas and the pelvis and those pelvic floor muscles? What do gravity and entropy have to do with it? We know we want to cooperate with gravity, but how do we do it? What's the secret? What can we do about it? And we're going to look at the inevitable changes as we age and what we can do. And we'll see that maybe they aren't so inevitable. All right, but now it's the time in our show, your favorite spot in our show, where we visualize. This is the part in our show where we do our virtual field trip. And we have a fun one today, and it's quite a long one. So stay with me, focus. Today, we're going to go to a flagpole. Have you ever heard of flagpole sitters? I hope you have. You know those nutty people that just climb flagpoles and just sit up there, seemingly quite peacefully? Well, for today's visualization, you've gotten yourself an introductory level job as a flagpole sitter. Okay, because you're new at it, they give you a little budget. They give you a construction crew, and then they send you off to your flagpole. Here we go. I'll go with you. You get to it, and you look up. It's way high up there. And you see the breeze going by, and maybe it just wavers just a little bit in the breeze, but it's okay because you look down then, and you notice that that thing is really firmly rooted, firmly grounded. So you figure that flagpole ain't going to climb itself, and you start moving up. After you get about 20 feet up, the flagpole starts to collapse a little bit and bend, and you keep moving up a little bit, but it starts to, sort of the way it used to be when you'd grab a car antenna and pull it down. It started wavering down a little bit. And now you're even starting to wonder how firm that foundation is in the earth. So you decide you better come back down pretty quickly. back on the earth you think, there have been flags on top of that pole for years and it doesn't bow. Why is it? Well, it's because flags don't weigh much. Me, with all my equipment and stuff, I'm pretty heavy. I'm putting weight on the top of that pole. So you go to your construction crew, your engineering crew, and you start masterminding something. You get a couple of thick metal cables and you hook them 4 or 5 feet up the bottom of this flagpole. You hook them up there and you fix them in there good, and you hook them down and put them on other poles in the ground. So you've got these 2 strong tent pole type things going from the ground to about 4 feet up this flagpole. And you test it again and it looks pretty good. It helps, so you begin to climb. You get 10 feet and it sways a little. You get 20 feet and it sways, but it's not bowing like that anymore. And so you say, okay, I have got some stability here. That thing's not going to fall out of the earth anymore. And you keep shimmying up towards the top. But now some strong breezes blow and you start wavering back and forth pretty well. All of a sudden you're losing faith in those cables that you got. You think, well, I need to do something else. So you come back down one more time. Rub your chin again. You think, okay, this calls for a little better planning. All right, so you get your construction people. And you get them to bring one of those trucks with the basket, like the electric company uses to hook things high up. And you get a basket, and you get some long, firm, stable, strong, but kind of rubbery straps, as tall as the flagpole. And you go all the way to the top, and you hook them on up there, one on each side. And you bring them down all the way down to the earth, and stretch them, and hook them back down on the ground. So now you've got a flagpole, you got 2 diagonal structures going up about 4 feet tall, and then you've got these long, elastic, bungee-like cables going from the top to the earth. And you think, now I've done it. Right as you're fixing them there, somebody walks by and says, hey man, those vertical bungee cords, they're not going to support the structure of that flagpole. They're not strong enough to do that. And you say, they don't have to hold the flagpole up. That's what the earth is for. What they need to do is provide some stability. So you climb up the flagpole. And this time you're up there. Maybe imagine I go away for a couple hours, and then when I come back, I just look around for you, then I look up, and there you are, just peacefully meditating on top of your flagpole with the winds blowing by you, and you're just rolling with them. All right, a long visualization today, but probably most of you have already guessed my parables. We're talking, and we're going to show you on Slim here in just a second, we're talking about our 2 main structures, our main vertical structure and our main horizontal structure. So let's go over to Slim. And we're going to see on Slim his pelvis and his spine. That's what we're talking about, and you've already guessed that that spine is analogous to the flagpole. Well, our pelvis, we'll spin Slim around here a little bit, our pelvis is analogous to the earth in that flagpole story. Our spines are cemented deeply into earth. See this here? This is the sacrum. It's not the pelvis bone. It's not the horizontal structure. It's the vertical structure. And if this is ground level, it is seated deeply into the earth. And it's holding there, holding that spine up. You'll notice that this sacrum here, where it seats in, the side here, you can see, you notice my 2 cords here, they're going to have meaning in a second. That's the sacroiliac joint that we talk about a lot. And that sacroiliac joint is important because it is the interface. It's supporting a lot of vertical weight right there. At the same time, energy is falling up, gravity's pulling down. So think about how much you weigh. Well, about 2/3 of your weight is centered right there. It's focused right there on that interface. And if we mismanage the way the top of us fits there, we may be mismanaging stuff up here, but we're going to experience the pain right here. Our spine is supported by our pelvis muscle. So let's go immediately to our next slide, and we'll look at our pelvis muscle. you see it there. Look at the right side it is, I believe, on your screen. The muscles there, you can see that white thing in the middle, that's your spine. And you can see how those pelvises, or how those psoas muscles are pulling on that spine. Imagine if one of those went away. Somebody would just immediately pull over to the other side, wouldn't they? So that spine is rooted into the pelvis, but those psoas muscles are what hold it there. Can you see how that works? Let's go right to our next slide. Because it is the psoas muscles, but it's the pitch of the pelvis in partnership with that psoas muscle. That red muscle there is the psoas, pulling on our pelvis and pulling on our spine. And so it's those two things that determine the structure of the entire top of us. You can imagine how the difference would be if that pulled tight or if that let loose. The psoas muscle controls how the spine seats into the pelvis right there. And so the way our pelvis tips determines how much work our upper body has to do. And you can see that on the next slide. You'll see here that the one guy has his pelvis tipped under, and the woman there has her pelvis tipped out. They change the shape of the spine. Energy falls up, and they change the shape of the spine at a foundational level. You can stand up and do that hula hoop motion and take a few steps with your spine curved in like that gentleman there, and you'll feel funny. Take a few steps with your hips turned out like the woman on the other side and see how that feels. Not how it feels on your hips, but how it feels on your spine. All right, let's come back here. In fact, let's come immediately up to Slim again. Slim here, we'll look at his spine. We'll tell you a little bit about spine. We slice the spine into 5 divisions. Going from the ground up, we've got the coccyx, the sacrum, the 5 lumbar vertebrae, the 12 thoracic vertebrae, and the 7 cervical vertebrae. One easy way to remember this is that the thoracic vertebrae are the ones that have ribs attached. 12 ribs, 12 vertebrae. The cervical vertebrae are above the ribs, lumbar are below. And the sacrum is where it all fits into our main horizontal structure. The coccyx we'll tell you about in another show. So that psoas cements the foundation, but there's a lot more going up on top, huh? That thing is holding us in the earth, but the flagpole isn't quite right yet. Our head and shoulder girdle and stuff weighs about 25 pounds by itself. Something has to deal with that weight, huh? Remember, the flagpole did just fine supported by the earth until there was weight at the top. Well, we've got weight at the top, so we've got other muscles there to help us manage stuff. What muscles? Well, they're the erector spinae muscles. And let's go right to those guys. And we'll bring up the next slide. These erector spinae muscles, there they are, go right up the spine. You can see that first slide. A while ago we spoke about the quadratus lumborum muscle. You can see on the other side of where that's marked, there's a muscle going all the way up the spine. In the middle you see them a little better. It's erector spinae muscles going up. They're the bungee cords. They're the bands. There's a couple of other initials there. There's a multifidus muscle, and that other one is your quadratus lumborum muscle. They all hold the spine erect, but mainly those erector spinae muscles and that multifidus muscle hold the upper spine erect. They're not important. They're not important to know the names. Let's bring up the next slide immediately, and you'll see a more medical school example of that. So those erector spinae muscles, they're designed to do something. They're the bungee cords. They are not designed to hold us upright. They're designed to give our spines flexibility and stability. Gravity and the psoas muscles are supposed to hold us upright. But we use, all of us, our erector spinae muscles incorrectly. One of the reasons so many of us have back trouble is that we use the surface muscles there, those erector spinae muscles, to hold us upright, like a cantilever, like a drawbridge, and it's not what they're designed for. Alrighty, let's come back up here. So, if they aren't designed to hold us upright, what are they designed for? Stability, flexibility, the ability to rock and roll with the punches a little bit. And if they aren't holding our spine up, what is? Well, gravity. That gravity that we're so busy fighting with. Now we're going to look at another model of our spine. I'm going to get out my spinal column that I showed you last show. What you'll notice as I start putting my spine together here, that these CD cases are grooved. And if I don't hit the grooves just right, my spine will be on the floor. A couple more of them here. We're building ourselves a nice spine. Now, these CD cases are grooved, and so is our spine. We'll tempt fate. Just put one more up here. So there they are. They're stacked up very nicely. And how much trouble are those spools having staying on top of each other? They're having no trouble whatsoever. Pull a couple of other things out here. What's holding them in place? Gravity. Nothing but gravity. If we just set these spools in a corner for about 80 years, what would happen? What would we see when we come back? Well, if there were no earthquakes or anything like that, we'd see this. Maybe a little dusty, but it would be the exact same thing. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some erector spinae muscles on there. Now, we won't tempt fate by trying to hook these things anywhere, but this is the job of the erector spinae muscles. These bungee cords are the erector spinae muscles. All right? Imagine they're attached to the table. Now, if the earth rocked and rolled a little bit, these guys would provide that stability. Now, all that nesting that's going on over there is not primarily responsible. They can leave their seats a little bit and flex to the left and the right and remain intact. But what they can't do is if this thing starts tipping forward, they cannot pull it back up. That's not what they're designed to do. But wait, if it's not natural to use our erector spinae like a drawbridge, then why do we do it? Why do we all do it so repeatedly, so unconsciously? Because we're out of touch with our core. Because we're asking the erector spinae muscles to do the job up here that the psoas muscle should be doing down here. I'm going to try to dismantle my my spine here. And if you hear a loud crash, you'll know that the flagpole has pulled out of the earth. I think we're in good shape. All right. And so what this does is it just sets up a terrible chain reaction. When our psoas muscle overcontracts, a bunch of stuff happens. You can do this with me at home if you want, and you'll feel it. What happens when these psoas muscles pull in? It pulls us over. It pulls us down. And then already we've started these erector spinae muscles with the job. Somebody says, stand up straight. And we start like a fishing reel. It's not what they're designed to do. But also when these psoas muscles pull down, what's happening is it's pulling our stomach muscles down. They're called rectus abdominis muscles. And that pulls our rib cage down. And when our rib cage pulls down, it collapses over our diaphragm. And then all of a sudden, oh no, we can't breathe. As that rib cage pulls down, it pulls down our neck muscles. These are our scalene muscles. Our stomach muscles pull down, our rib cage pulls down, our scalene muscles pull down, our neck goes into our body, and then these muscles, these pec muscles pull in. And then all of this pulls further forward, and somebody says, stand up straight. And again, those erector spinae muscles start pulling us up, and now we're standing like this. And then, guess what? The whole process starts all over again. That, my friends, is a recipe for disaster. It overstretches all of those back muscles. And then, those erector spinae muscles, over time, they get like the elastic on that old worn-out piece of a pair of underwear. They just lose their form and their structure. And we end up somewhere in Florida with our pants up to here and our shoulders down here and our spines bent down here, and we think it's just the natural process of life. All right, so among all the other bad things that happens, that leads to deformities. And we'll bring up another slide here, and we'll look at the 3 basic ones. 3 bad things that can happen to our spine. The first one is kyphosis, the second one is lordosis, and the third one is scoliosis. Now these, we can be born with these things too, but whether you're born with them or whether you develop them, they can all be fixed. They can all be fixed. Kyphosis is the curve in your upper back. It's the hump back, the dowager hump. Lordosis is that curve in your lower back. It's what happens after a while when you have that duck butt look, that lower back curve. Then you can see that scoliosis is a lateral curve in your back. All right, so let's come back up here. Why does our low back hurt? Well, I don't have kyphosis or lordosis, but my low back hurts. Well, if we don't deal with it right, we'll get kyphosis or lordosis. Our low back hurts because of our psoas grabbing too tight because of our core. How about our mid-back? Why does it hurt? Well, it's because our psoas is grabbing too tight. It's our core. Well, how about our upper back? Well, guess what? It's our psoas grabbing too tight. It's our core. But by the time we get up here, energy falls up and it builds momentum. And it's our erector spinae too. And it's all just going. And it's all moving in that chain reaction. So when we use these erector spinae muscles like a drawbridge, we're committing an unnatural act. It's a fight against nature. It's a crime against nature. Those erector spinae muscles, they might not be strong enough to support us, to give us our stability and our structure, but they're plenty strong enough to do to our spines what braces do to our teeth. Over years and years of pushing and pulling the wrong way, just what braces do. Braces take your teeth that are in the wrong position and move them to a right position. Well, the erector spinae muscles, when we misuse them, they take our spines in the right position and move them in the wrong position over years and years and years. And so we go to a wise healer or a wise therapist, and he starts working on our hips because we feel it here, but the problem's here. And we say, well, he's not going where the problem is. He must not know what he's doing. All right. So, after a lifetime of being molded, that's where we end up. And we end up in bad shape. And the time to do something about it is to do it now. And speaking of now we're out of time. So, thank you for joining me. I wish you peace and positive energy and a healthy life in Energy Contact.